Góðan daginn, heyrist í mér? Góðan daginn, bonjour. Good day. We have half an hour instead of 1 hour, but we only have 4 in the panel, so we'll be making it in half an hour. I hope. Well, my name is Thor Jakobsson, and I was head of the Sea Ice Service at the Icelandic Meteorological Office for 25 years, and also a teacher at the university. I have retired, but Inga doesn't give me allowance to a break to, as we say in Icelandic, setjast í helgan stein. It's an old Icelandic sentence for going into actually some kind of a monastery or something like that. Anyway, we have had excellent talks today, and this morning I was thinking of what to say as an introduction. I thought of the icebreakers and ships I was fortunate enough to be on to the north. In particular, a few memorable expeditions. First of all, in 1972, I went on Canada's largest icebreaker, Louis-Saint-Laurent, up to Baffin Bay, very thick ice, and we didn't make it where we were going to go until up to 82 north, but Louis-Saint-Laurent is still going strong and is only to be replaced in a couple of years as the largest icebreaker of Canada. Now in 1982, I was on a Soviet icebreaker, Otto Schmidt. The ship became very old and doesn't exist anymore, but a model of the famous ship is on display in a museum in Petersburg, Russia. Well, I went on Bjarni Sæmundsson, the Icelandic oceanographic vessel, 10 annual voyages along the east coast of Greenland, and enjoyed it very much. Old Bjarni Sæmundsson is now no longer in use, unfortunately, floating still in Reykjavik harbor. Now, on the fourth one is a couple of trips I went on a research and tourism ship Explorer, which was then Canadian, an old-timer in the Arctic and around Antarctica, and I went into the longest fjord on the globe, the Scoresby Sound on the east coast of Greenland, in 2005 and 2006. It was supposed to be back in 2008, but unfortunately, in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica, it bumped into an obscure sea ice and sank to the bottom of the sea in a few hours. We saw a picture of this ship earlier today. Luckily, it was relatively calm weather, and crew and passengers were rescued after considerable time waiting in anxiety in Explorer's rescue boats. Well, in the next half an hour, we will listen to the panel members, and I ask them to introduce themselves. But I would like to ask them to spend 1 minute in thinking about an incident like this happening here north of Iceland, and what they suggest to avoid it or what to do if it happens. And now I also want them to, since we have young students here, or at least students, in modern days everyone is studying, just to address them for a minute and tell them about what they think of the Arctic, not only the dangers but also its beauty. Now I would like to ask, is it Margrét?
Yes.
So, and please introduce yourself, and then you have 5 minutes or so to talk even so about your subjects, and then these two additional questions. Ask. Yeah.
So I start with introducing myself and talking about the subject before I pass it on.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you have about 10 minutes, I suppose. 40 minutes. Please
Hi
go
everyone.
ahead.
My name is Margrét Cela. I'm from the Center for Arctic Policy Studies at the University of Iceland. I'm also a PhD student at the University of Lapland, where I am studying security in the Arctic. And I teach a course at the University of Iceland about the security of people and states. Well, I've been looking at security in the Arctic for the past years, since 2009, from my PhD studies. Tourism hasn't really been one of my topics, but everything relates to that, I guess. And I think that I will just go straight into addressing the questions that he came up with here. So to begin with, I would use Ingibjörg's suggestions about what to do to prevent something to happen in the Arctic. That is by cooperation, research, monitoring, and legislation. So I think all those are areas that we need to put more efforts into, and they would be the key to avoiding bad incidents as much as we can. It would be a really good thing if we could get the cruise ships to travel together. That's been talked about quite a lot. And if something were to happen anyway, in spite of all our good intentions to avoid that, the first thing that comes to mind is that we would have to do our best with whatever we have, with the resources we have. We would have to hope that it would be too different, the incident, from what we have exercised and what we know about, because we know that every time an incident happens, it's never exactly the same way as you rehearsed it or you expected it to be. It's always going to be different. We would probably have to look for nearby vessels, rely on assistance from them for first rescue. And I think, well, most importantly, we would have to rely on international cooperation. For instance, in the case of any large accident happening, we don't have the resources to do it. So we would have to count on our neighboring states. So importantly, we have to enhance that cooperation and make sure that our interests are taken account of. Thank you.
My name is Ágústsson. I work for Faxaflóahafnir, Faxaport in English. And I'm also the chairman of Cruise Iceland. Cruise Iceland is an association of all those who service the cruise ships when they come to Iceland. Just to give you a little bit the background of what we are talking about when it comes to cruise vessels coming to Iceland. This year, we expect 90 calls to Reykjavik. That's about 95% of all the calls to Iceland. And 63 vessels are over 20,000 brutto registered ton. Out of those 63, 7 are over 100,000 tons. And those are the big ones, as we say, about 2,500 to 3,000 passengers. 2015 we have 67 calls registered, and of those 53 are over 20,000 tons, and again 7 of those 53 are over 100,000 tons. Approximately 23 or 4 of those coming this summer are going to stay overnight, which is a new trend in the visits to Reykjavik. It has been happening for the last 5 seasons, 5 years, that we have the ships stopping overnight. There are 2 reasons for this. Reykjavik is a nice city, people like it, they like to stay here. And secondly, the ship do not use as much oil, bunker. when they stop. And of course, when price of oil is going up, it affects the ship very much. I cannot add much to what Margrét said about the rescue, but it hasn't been mentioned very much here today what the actual cruise ships or the cruise ship owners are doing to prevent actually taking steps 1, 2, and 3 from Björn's lecture. There is an association called AECO, which is the Association of Arctic Expeditions Cruise ship owners. Their office is in Copenhagen and in Svalbard. And they have a very strict rules of what the ship can do, or the captain can allow the ship to do, both in terms of environmental issues and safety. Another organization is CLIA, which is the Cruise Ship International Association of Owners. This is a very strong organization, and the president of the European section visited Iceland in May last year, participated in the cruise symposium we held in Harpa. And what they are complaining about is not, they would like to have more cooperation and more communication with the land-based people in terms of security. And for instance, I was in Miami 3 weeks ago, I think it was, at the convention, and there was a course, 3-hour course, CLIA held for people from the ports, how to manage rescue. Not the rescue itself, but how to manage the people when they come ashore. Usually they are in shock, their state of mind is not quite normal. And this was a course, and the only one from Iceland to attend it was Guðmundur, port director in Ísafjörður. CLIA has offered the Icelandic authorities to come to Southampton and participate in a setup there. And as far as I know, there is a conference in Gothenburg in May dealing with the issue of rescue as well. I would like to mention ECA, that is the new regulations taking place in 2015 in January, where there is the emission restrictions coming 2015 in Europe and 2020, where they have less than 0.1% of sulfur. Dealing with this, most of the cruise lines are putting in so-called scrubbers, and most of us expected that the cruise ships would leave the area as much as they could, because it's much more expensive to operate with more expensive fuel. But it does not seem to be the case. They're going to put in the scrubbers and thus comply with these new regulations. I give it to you now, Guðmundur.
Thank you. My name is Guðmundur Nikulásson, and I am the Vice President of Eimskip Domestic here in Iceland. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the speakers for their excellent presentation. Number of interesting things which we heard there. In case of very serious hazardous things to happen in the Icelandic waters, I think it's very limited what we can do. I agree with Björn and some of the other speakers that it's very limited what can be done here. In my opinion, it's very important for our small community here in Iceland to work closely together with all the other Arctic countries to try to improve things to increase safety and security for the future. We can see that a number of things is going on in this Arctic waters if we look into the future. We are talking about oil and gas projects in the seawater, a number of mining projects in Greenland, considerable increase in the travel industry, and also many people talking about Arctic shipping routes. All this means increased traffic in Arctic waters, and therefore we have to improve safety and security for the people, for the nature and everything. If we just look at, as we are at Eimskip, we now celebrate 100 years, January this year. So we've been on the North Atlantic waters for 1 decade. Of course, up and downs through the way, but as we see it now, and we have seen for many decades, we try to have our operation as safe as possible. And if we look into what can be done, we have to look at the age of the vessels. They will not let them getting too old. We have to ensure high maintenance level and preventive maintenance on the vessels. We have to have skilled captains and crew members. The level of education and training must be high for the people. And then if we look at the vessel itself, we have to look in the future for more environmentally friendly energy resources, like Gísli mentioned, to be able to have the exhaust from the vessels cleaner than it is today. But then again, we have to take care of that. The regulations are not too strict. They have to be strict, but not too strict, because we have to build up environment in such a way that we can have active operations in the Arctic Ocean and ensure sustainability for the future, which is very important. Of course, something to add to this, we have to have professional ship management for all the different operators. We have to minimize risk and have the operation as safe as possible. I think that's about it for now. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Soffía Guðmundsdóttir, and I am the Executive Secretary for the PAME Working Group of the Arctic Council. It stands for Protection of the Arctic Marine Environment. And that working group addresses policy and non-emergency pollution prevention and control measures related to the protection of the Arctic marine environment. So we are mainly a policy working group of the Council, one of the 6 working groups. In responding to Thor's question, I have a project for him that we will get the results at the end of, at the middle of year 2015. And the Canadian ambassador just mentioned that briefly earlier. Because PAME is a policy group that addresses issues related to the Arctic marine environment, we have a number of projects on that aspect, and one of the bigger one that we have done was the 2009 Arctic Marine Shipping Assessment Report that was approved by the Arctic Councils, and it has 17 recommendations. So what we have been doing over the years since 2009 is to follow up these recommendations with a number of projects, and of which one of them is now a new project called the Arctic Marine Tourism Project, and that's both based on this follow-up and as a follow-up to the Canadian Chairmanship priorities on the safe shipping. And this project is now on our work plan for the period 2013 to 2015. And it's shipborne tourism is kind of the central focus on that project. We just proved the final draft project plan in February. And just to give you a bit of a flavor of the content of that plan is that it will collect and assess existing information regarding trends in Arctic tourism, collect and assess existing information on both the adverse and beneficial environmental, social and cultural impacts of Arctic tourism, inventorying existing laws, codes, policies, guidelines and best practices pertaining to sustainable Arctic tourism. And based on these evaluations of these different inventories, then the plan is to develop a best practices report on sustainable Arctic tourism as it relates to shipborne tourism. And in that best practices report, one would assume that there will be some recommendations. But I would also like to mention that this project per se is kind of one of potentially a number of other tourism projects that will maybe be have a different focus and follow on to this project. This will be submitted in May 2015 to the Arctic Council ministers for their approval. And in developing that project and finalizing it, the first workshop was held 17th of March in Ottawa, Canada. And I wasn't there, but and I don't have the report, the workshop report. I haven't received it yet. But like the Canadian ambassador, he mentioned the number of people. There was quite a good number of people and spread of expertise in that workshop. And I just would like to, because I didn't prepare anything I was abroad and I just came back, and so I didn't prepare anything for this panel. But I just would though like to, I just got an email. You wanna hear you want me to read you an email? Yeah. I just got an email that is an announcement that came out under cruiseindustrynews.com. It's based on kind of the perception or the message from that workshop, from the Arctic Marine Tourism workshop, and it's from the industry. It's from the actually. The interview is taken with the Association of Arctic Expedition Cruise Operators. And I just want to, because it gives you a bit of a flavor of the different views we see based on where you come from. And I might not read the whole thing because you can go into cruiseindustrynews.com and you can see it. The title is Arctic Cruise Tourism, not a fast-growing industry. This is the headline. So it goes on to talk about that this was the workshop. During the workshop, a number of speakers, including researcher operators and industry representatives, helped correct the myth about the supposedly large increase in Arctic cruise tourism. This is a key. A false notion of the actual number of visitors has the potential of creating too high expectations, both in regards to opportunities and risks, said this representative from the AECO. The statement continued, governments might put too large an emphasis on business opportunities while authorities may consider the need for new regulations based on incorrect presumptions. This can in turn lead to unnecessarily strict regulations and a decline in local tourism and business opportunities. And then according to, this is actually, they are taking an interview with the executive director of AECO. According to the executive director, expedition cruise tourism can be a driver of environmental protection and a better local economy if measures are based on facts and if operators, local communities and regulators work together. I agree with that. With the last sentence, but I'm not gonna give you my personal views on what this says, but I think it's just to give you a flavor of what we are dealing with. There is this, we have this, there is a big, economic question here, and there are businesses working there, and I mean, and that is how we merge these things together. And we have actually been working quite a bit with the industry, PAME. We have always had them at our meetings. They've given presentations, and they have shared with us what they're doing, and it's always welcome. And the plan is not to necessarily start putting restrict. That's anyway not my, not what I read from the governments. It's not to put strict regulations, but it's just that we can all cooperate and maybe be a bit more aware of what's happening. And finally, I would, because there's a graph in these news, how we do surveys. It would be interesting, and I hope this project that we are doing will show us different ways of surveying kind of the increase and or the perceived increase in tourism in the Arctic. I will leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I didn't answer any question.
Þú tekja alveg sloppin, Soffía.
I don't know.
Well, thank you. Actually, I read this news item Soffía was reading this morning, and somehow it felt that they were forgetting Iceland in terms of increasing number of cruise liners coming to Iceland. But anyway, thank you very much. Now, I just want to, before I ask again, I'll ask them to maybe conclude this marvelous meeting with some optimistic words to the young people, the students. I would like to express my appreciation for having a Canadian ambassador, Stuart Wheeler, coming here and for as a leader of the community of the Arctic nations, which are now having a 2-year session, isn't it? And I also want to remind people of that there are also other organizations working besides the Arctic Council. That's the one Inga mentioned, the International Ice Charting Working Group, and also the Arctic Circle Convention, which was here this last fall and will be again here in Iceland in October. So there are many things going on. Now I would repeat my suggestion that you address the students in the end. We have a few minutes here, just a minute each person, or also make if there are any announcements you have to make.
There are some questions also.
I have a question from here behind the column. I think it's both for Margrét and Ágúst. I wonder that you said that cruise ships are going to come to Reykjavik. I don't remember the exact number. And you would suggest that they even travel together. Like, are there any action plans examining, like if you have these thousands of people coming for one night into the city, how to deal with that?
Sorry, what do you mean, action plans for if something would happen close
it's
to?
just more like 5,000-6,000 people coming into the city during one night.
Yes?
I think it has an impact on a small city like Reykjavik. Are there any regulations on this, or?
Actually, I'm not the right person to ask this. I'm not that I'm aware of, but maybe you know something more?
No, I don't think there are any regulations except the police general regulations about guests coming to Reykjavik. We've had this number of people here now and then, and it's not a big difference between people coming on airplanes to Keflavik, 15,000 a day, coming on boats, 15,000 perhaps if you count it.
An extra hotel, it's a floating hotel.
Yeah, it's a floating hotel, exactly. That's why they come on ship. And with regards to risks in Reykjavik itself, there is work going on
Civil protection.
civil protection, which will be finished in about 1 or 2 months. A plan for Reykjavik and actually the Faxaflói Bay, a rescue plan, which is in the making and hopefully will be finished. I'd just like to add that the cruise industry is very dynamic. Things which are changing this year and next year, for example, this was issued last week, that 2015 is the last time we will see the nuclear-powered icebreakers sail to the North Pole. The Russian ships will not do that anymore. There are 2 operators doing it. It's Quark Expedition in Toronto and Poseidon in Moscow that operate these. Do about 6 each summer, but the icebreakers will not be available anymore, so that will stop. Instead, there will be more cruise vessels, the expedition type, going through the Northwest Passage. As for Iceland, contradictory to what you were saying here, there will be much more small expedition ships coming to Iceland 2015 and onwards. And this is because there are more restrictions both in Greenland and in Svalbard or Spitsbergen.
Já, þakka ykkur fyrir þetta. Thank you very much. And then we will conclude with few hopefully optimistic words about the Arctic. What is so attractive by the Arctic, or is it not? Margrét.
Okay, well, first of all, I think I would like to take advantage of my opportunity here and read an announcement about another conference that's going to be next week about Arctic tourism. The Center for Arctic Policy Studies is going to host a seminar on tourism and identity in the Arctic. It's going to be on the 10th of April. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning at the University of Iceland in the building Otti 101. Speakers include participants in the HERA project, Arctic Encounters, and the Winter Tourism project. So I hope to see many of you there. As for the students, I apologize that I forgot to answer that in the first round. So let me say just a few things now. What's attractive about the Arctic? I think everything. It's unique. If you travel around the Arctic, you find nature, and that's not like anywhere else. So I think everything is attractive, not just the opportunities that you can of the extracting oil or opening of shipping routes or anything like that. It's attractive in many layers. But also, if I were to give any advice to students interested in the Arctic, I would have 3 points. First of all, be careful to balance between threats and opportunities, because it seems to be when people are talking about the Arctic that they're always either focusing on the threats or the opportunities, but there's not very often balance between. This is an interdisciplinary thing. People are doing research on the Arctic within almost every discipline I know. So explore different fields to just broaden your horizon. And be very critical to what you hear in the media, because I think that the media is often interpreting things in a very strange ways, what is happening in the world, not just in Iceland and the Arctic, but around the world. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me here.
I'm going to pass this on to Guðmundur. I've spoken so much.
Okay. I think the future for the Arctic is very bright for young people and all people. We have to be careful, like a number of people have mentioned today. And I think it's very important that we keep on working on research, monitoring, and legislation in good cooperation between the Arctic countries for the benefit of all of us for the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I've been working with the Arctic Council for, Anna actually reminded me, 14 years. And things have changed significantly. I mean, I don't know the correct adjective to describe it, but it has changed a lot. And also, of course, the interest, has changed. But what is, now there are students studying different disciplines, with an Arctic focus, which is excellent, because I have been actually kind of not complaining about, but talking to the ministries here in Iceland and in our member state countries, is that there is a gap that is starting to be created. But I think, hopefully with more students now, that gap will be filled. Gap in knowledge. There is for example, in the academia, no, not the academia, but the administration and the government, and the people that work for the government, that there is a certain expertise that is about to retire. But then there is a certain gap in experience that needs to be filled in. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I urge you all to, the students to you just go into the fields that have an Arctic focus, which you're most interested in, be it the academia, tourism, specifically shipping, whatever you decide. But because we need you actually, and it's not so bad also to work for, to be in the bureaucratic world. Because my sense is that there actually we need people, significantly. And there's a lot of opportunities also when you look at different rules and regulations that exist, is that there are certain gaps, and not only gaps, but some of the rules and regulations have some guidelines to it that, have a potential to be better advanced and better used. And then also the surveys that I've done. It would be nice to, have a different viewpoints and the ways in which surveys are done. So I leave it at that. Thanks.
Well, I would like to thank Soffía, Ágúst, Guðmundur, and Margrét for their contribution, and I feel we should now applaud. Thank you very much, and I would like to ask Anna to come forward and take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Thor, and thank you, panelists. It's my role to close this symposium. It's been an honor having you today, both guests and participants. And I myself, I've learned a lot, and I think what is the lesson learned today is joint efforts elevate the knowledge. And I want to thank you all for coming, and I hope this will proceed. And let's meet up for the next tourism symposium next week. Thank you.